Well, thank you everyone for joining this session. I know you've had a lot of different choices for sessions that are amazing that are going on, but I promise that if you stay with this session by the end, I promise to give you a couple of things. By the end, you'll get a 97-page slide deck that walks through all the case studies we're going to go through together. And the other thing I've been doing is I've been reviewing a lot of the community platforms out there and came up with a little bit of assessment on what kind of community platforms that I really love. So I'd be happy to share that with you as well if you stay till the end of the session. It's going to be 30 minutes. It's going to be power packed. But before we jump in, I want to spend a little bit of time getting to know people and like helping each of us network. I know this has been a crazy last 6 months for the community industry. You know, I went through a layoff myself, had several team members go through it. So just put a 1, 2, 3 in the comments. Number one, if you are looking for opportunities, just drop a 1 in the chat. Number two, if you're happily, steadily employed in a current opportunity, just put number 2, you're kind of chilling. And number 3, if you're hiring or looking for community talent, go ahead and put that in the chat as well, just so we can sort of network each other, use the space to create opportunities for each other. Outside of that, just wanted to say a huge thank you for joining this session. We're going to talk about community-led growth over the next 30 minutes, and I'll walk you through 7 case studies. It's going to be power-packed. It's going to be high energy. There'll be 97 slides that I'm going to go through really quickly so that you can walk away with tactical steps that you could use today. So if you know this cartoon, you know this is a famous shout-out to the brand Harley Davidson. And Harley Davidson created this cult-like brand 30 years ago about people who loved being outdoors on their motorcycles. 30 years later, this brand called Peleton also created this viral cult-like following of people who loved exercising on a bike, but this time inside their homes. So today we're going to talk about how it is that Peleton, a company that was able to create a $35 billion market cap back in 2020, bigger than Ford at the time, just by their power of community, and how you can use some of these tactics yourself for the things that you're doing. So that's what we're going to jump into today. And I'd love to sort of walk you through what I've learned in my own journey. Before I do that, I want to just quickly tell you about, there's a lot of noise happening around community if you've been in the space for a while, suddenly in the last 2 or 3 years. But today I want to break down what is the signal behind those noises and what you can do in your own community practice. So a quick introduction of myself. My name is Sumeru Chatterjee. My friends call me Sumo, like the wrestler. And I'm head of community at a community called customereducation.org. It's like a sister to CMX, but we focus on customer education, enablement, and customer training professionals. I was the former head of community at Thinkific. We had 30,000 members. And I was head of community at ShareCoro as well, which is my own startup, where we have 180,000 people on YouTube. So I run communities on Facebook, Slack, YouTube, pretty much all across the board, everything from Chorus to Insider to Bevy, Vanilla. I know the full tech stack, but I've been a community builder for a long time. And my goal for this presentation is to get you to think beyond community today. So I'm going to walk you through why this is important, what you should go to your CEO and talk about today. First one is, let's talk about why community is big right now. In SaaS 1.0, software was chosen top down. People bought the software at the top and then pushed it down. And the barrier to entry was a good sales and marketing team. In SaaS 2.0, we got this rise of product-led growth, where people chose the product at the bottom and then, people bought it at the top once people were using it. And the barrier to entry here was building good code, was writing software, was making beautiful user interfaces. But the problem with this is today, if you go to this website called Zero Code, for $149, you can buy the front end and back end of any SaaS application like Uber, Reddit, Airbnb, Udemy. For $150, anyone can make a SaaS application. And this is why 10 years ago, the MarTech landscape had 150 companies. And today there's over 8,000 companies that sell marketing software. So if you're a marketing software SaaS company today, it's really difficult to stand out. Just yesterday, Canva made an announcement of their new product called Canva Whiteboard. So imagine your Miro or Figma or ClickUp or Zoom Whiteboard. Man, how do you differentiate yourself when every product out there looks the exact same? And anytime you make an innovation, somebody can copy that innovation in a matter of weeks. So when Whiteboard started, Miro was the hot favorite. Then Zoom launched its thing. Then ClickUp launched its thing. Then Figma launched FigJam. Now Canva has launched Whiteboard. And from a product perspective, they all look the same. So this is why I believe product-based differentiation is dead. If your only mode is building better products, you're not going to survive this competitive landscape, which is SaaS. So this brings us to SaaS 3.0, which is really understanding like how do we create moat. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to tell you this NFX secret that you can use in your own company. I'll walk you through 5 case studies, and I'll walk you through my MUSIK framework so that you can steal these ideas and implement them in your own community program. So if you're ready, just give me a thumbs up on the chat and we'll jump in. Okay, so let's get going. First, let's talk a little bit about the case studies I'm going to walk you through. So I'm going to walk you through 5 case studies in 5 minutes. It's going to be super quick and you're going to learn a lot, right? So if you're taking notes, get those out there and we'll jump right in. This company, when they started, they were selling, snowboards, and they were like, "Hey, selling snowboards online is really difficult. There's got to be a better way to, to sell surfboards and snowboards." And they built a platform to help people sell things online. This company is Shopify. But when they started, they had a movement. They wanted to build a movement where they wanted to make e-commerce better for everyone. They wanted to make commerce on the internet easier for everyone. And they had a couple of rituals that they started early on. They realized that e-commerce is difficult. So one of their rituals was creating a place where e-commerce merchants could share their trade secrets and discuss how to use products to sell their products better and really help each other and get support. So they built rituals around support. And long story short, 90% of Shopify customers have interacted with the community in some way or the other, right? And the community organization within Shopify is actually a revenue generating function. So Shopify wanted to create a movement around making e-commerce better, and they built support-based rituals to support that movement. The question that I have for each one of you, and I'll repeat this 5 times today, is what kind of movement are you building? Not what your community is about, not what your product does, but what is your big movement that you're building? The second case study talks about this company where when they started in Tel Aviv, they said, you know what? Salespeople make sales based on opinions, but we want to create a movement for people who believe in the power of data, believe in the power of truth. And this company is Gong.io. When they started, they built this ritual of creating these really crazy, outlandish, data-based articles on how sales can be improved using data and functionality. And they built a massive audience on LinkedIn, one of the first B2B brands to build an organic audience on LinkedIn. And they had their rituals around putting their customers on billboards and really around rituals around writing really good content that people loved. And they didn't have a community platform. They weren't using Slack. They were just putting out great content from their own salespeople, talk about how to use Gong. And they built this massive audience of over 150,000 people on LinkedIn. And it's called the Gong Mob, where anytime somebody's asking about sales tools, everyone is tagging Gong because they love the brand so much. So Gong wanted to create this movement around database sales. And they had these rituals of writing really compelling narratives to support that. The question, again, is what kind of movement are you building? Third company we're going to talk about. In the early days, they built a physical bike 30 years after people were kind of tired of at-home bicycles, right? But they were like, this is not about biking. This is about connecting people who like working out at home. So this could be a mom who's taking care of their kid. This could be, sort of somebody who's retired or somebody who just works from home and wants to be connected with other people. And Peleton, as you know, created a lot of rituals around, about this idea of a leaderboard, right? So anytime you're doing a Peleton workout, you're competing with other people in real time. So that's their ritual of competition, daily competition from home. And the results of Peloton's the result of Peloton's community is obvious. So their movement was connecting people who are stuck at home. The question again for you is, what kind of movement are you building with your own community? Okay. Now let's talk about the fourth company here. One of my favorite companies. In the early days, these two founders said, you know what? Learning language is really expensive. Like buying courses like Rosetta Stone or buying encyclopedias or even taking classes in person in your own locality is really expensive. So how do we connect people who want to learn a new language, and how do we make a movement around learning new languages and making that cool and making that fun and making that easy and making that a shared connected experience instead of a solo private experience? This company, if you know them, I love them, is called Duolingo. And what they did was they said, you know what, in order to build community, we're going to outsource all of this. Is they allowed their users to create local meetups and events, and start the community from the ground up themselves. So they didn't have giant community programs or teams. They just gave permission and a little bit of swag to their users around the world to create sort of local meetups for people learning a language. Today, the crazy thing about Duolingo is there are 90 courses in 40 languages, and 85% of them were made by Duolingo users for free. So the company basically outsources their product development to their free users, and they have 500 million users across the world. So that's the power of building an amazing community, is you can outsource building products, hosting events, doing evangelism to your community here. So they wanted to build a movement around how to learn a language, or connecting people who want to learn a language, and they unlocked their community growth. The last case study is one that is a little close to home. This gentleman was teaching 15 students in a tiny classroom in Kolkata, in India, about 5 years ago. And then he decided that he wanted to create a movement for people who wanted to learn stock market investing in local Indian languages. So people who don't speak English or people who don't speak Hindi, he wanted to create a movement for investors to connect in their local language. So he went from teaching in a classroom to teaching online on YouTube. And over the last 2 years, this gentleman has created a following of 150,000 people just by creating content in their local language. This gentleman happens to be my father. His name is Sumeru Chatterjee. And his ritual is around really showing up for his audience twice a week. And he's been doing it consistently for the last 2 years and has built a following of 170,000 people. So the ritual here is just showing up and providing content that nobody else is doing. Right? And today he has 50,000 students that he trains across the world globally. So these are a couple of case studies that we went through just to talk a little bit about movements and rituals. Okay. There are several others that I have in my stack that I don't have time for today. I'd be happy to send them to you. But today I want to talk a little bit about what are some of the patterns behind some of these things, right? So what was common amongst all of these stories that you can steal for your own program? The first one is you have to stand up and say, something is broken, something is wrong, we need to fix this. The second one is you got to ask who else is with you on this journey. The third one is you got to create connection. The fourth one is you got to help each other. And the last one is you got to celebrate success. This is the NFX secret. It's called network effects. If you're in the community space, you know this, but I wanted to show you how powerful this can be. And I want you to take this to your CEO today so you can talk about what kind of movement you can build together. So in the future, every company is going to be community first, right? And we're going to create this environment where community is at the heart of the company and everything else surrounds it. So I don't take credit for this slide. It was created by Comsor, but I think it talks a lot about how forward-looking companies are thinking. But I have a challenge for us. I think as community managers, we are not thinking big enough. We're not standing up to our CEOs and saying, community is not just a little function or a little Slack channel. It's about how we show up for our audience. So I'm going to challenge you on how you can go challenge your CEO on how to think big about community. So what I'm going to walk you through is my 5-step MUSIK framework that you can discuss with your CEO and talk about how to grow your community like some of these other programs have. So it's called the MUSIK framework because it's 5 things, MUSIK. Let's jump in and we'll talk about how to use the MUSIK framework yourself. The first layer is called movement. M is for movement. You have to show up and decide what your movement needs to be. There are 2 tips I can give you for declaring your movement. First one is to talk about what is the bad thing happening in the world that we stand against. Okay. I see a lot of new community managers talk about being inclusive or, sort of being for everyone. That's not how you create a movement. You create a movement by standing up and saying something is broken and we're here to fix that. Okay. Tip number 2 is that it has to be controversial. If it doesn't annoy or alienate some people, that means you're not creating something that's bold enough or risky enough. So that's my first question to you is, what is your movement? Some examples of movement, for Black Lives Matter, they stand against people who don't believe that Black Lives Matter, right? Nike has this, their movement is that anyone can be an athlete, right? It doesn't matter what you look like, you can be an athlete, and everyone is an athlete. And that is controversial, right? Salesforce has this movement when they first started around the end of software, that they wanted to kill software. And that was their whole movement. And that was very controversial at the time. And ironically, Salesforce is the largest software company in the world today. So some of the tactics you can use to create a movement is you can create a message, you can create a charter, a declaration, or a framework, something that people can sign and say, I'm part of this movement as well. The second layer of building a community is to drive utility for your members. Okay. So some of the tactics for utility driving, these you might already be familiar with, things like, a conversation, like a chat room, learning content, templates, Q&A forum, roadmaps, downvote, upvote features, resource libraries, things that drive utility for the users that you are serving, for the people that are part of your movement. The second layer, once you've built the utility layer in your community, is to add the social connection layer. And this is what CMX is doing today, right? So they're doing meetups, DMs, coffee intros, leaderboards, marketplaces, roundtables, things like places or events or spaces for your members to connect with each other. That's the third part of building community. The fourth part is building identity. This is the big goal that all communities should strive towards, right? So this is no longer about what you do, but who you are or who your members are, right? So ideas for identity are, tactics that you can deploy are things like awards and conferences and annual holidays and certifications, all of things that CMX has done. So CMX really helps people build the identity of being a community manager, of being a community operator. And CMX has done an incredible job of defining this identity by creating the best conference, by creating the industry awards, by the report, by an annual holiday for community managers, certifications, things like that. And the last layer, the super, super important layer here, is the layer for KPIs. So a lot of community managers, build the community programs, but they don't ever figure out how they can show the right metrics back to their business that actually shows how community-led growth works. So if you missed it yesterday, Richard Millington did an amazing talk about how to show the value of community. He is a really good community thinker. So I'd encourage you to check out his work. Richard Millington, and I'm sure it'll come out as well. But think about how you can drive KPIs for your business, whether it's about engagement or churn prevention or conversion or referral growth or NRR, NDR. Get familiar with the numbers that your boss's boss cares about. And the KPI layer is going to be the sort of backbone of your community program. So that is the 5-step MUSIK framework on how to build and grow a community-led program. MUSIK, movement, utility, social identity, and KPI. And because I have 2 extra minutes, I'm going to walk you through 2 bonus case studies so you can steal and see how this works in practice. My favorite software of all time is a product called Notion. If you aren't using it for yourself, it's free, it's amazing. I highly encourage you to do that. And let's talk about how Notion uses community across their user journey, across the 3 steps: awareness, conversion, and expansion. So let's talk about how Notion is actually a community-led company. On the awareness layer, the founder started with a small meetup in Singapore where 20 people showed up. But today, those people or their champions themselves run subreddits and sub-communities by themselves. This is not Notion-led, it's member-led, that have 140,000 members in Korea or 150,000 people on Reddit. All of this is community-led. And these communities drive awareness for Notion and get new users. And Notion tracks how many users come through these sort of member-led communities. So that's how community works for them in the awareness section. On the conversion and activation section, initially Notion users were creating templates and little services for people to get started. Eventually, Notion formalized this program and used this member-driven content to convert and activate their new customers into paid customers. So again, using member-driven content, member-driven products to drive conversion and activation. That's how community plays a role in the second tier. And the third tier, community on the upgrade and expansion piece is Notion community members initially started doing some consulting on the side, right? Or like providing services. Again, Notion saw this and they formalized the program into a certified consultant program. And now these certified consultants help companies use Notion, upgrade Notion, and expand Notion. Again, all this is driven by community without having to hire more people, right? Thinkific was a company that I worked at, and I was head of community there. And, our movement was to help people share their knowledge online. And very similar to Notion, we use community across the three stages: awareness, conversion, and expansion. Awareness, our Facebook group had 50,000 members, and that drove a lot of referral traffic for Thinkific's free product. For conversion, we stole Notion's playbook and we built an app and marketplace for people to get activated on Thinkific. And again, on the expansion side, we also stole Notion's playbook and built an expert marketplace so people could get services easily and expand on the product. So be thinking about how your community plays a part in all three steps of this journey, and that's how you get a seat at the big table. Okay, so we went through a lot. If you would like a copy of all 97 pages of the case studies that I've written, including the bonus case studies, you can scan this link in front of your screen, or you can find me on LinkedIn. You can just search for Sumo or go to linkedin.com/in/Sumo, and you will tag me or just send me a DM, and I'd be happy to send you the bonus case studies. The other thing I wanted to mention is I run a community of enablement professionals, SaaS enablement professionals. So if you're in customer training, customer education, if you're in customer community, customer marketing, we have 3,700 members. We're sort of like a sister organization to CMX, where CMX focuses on community people. We focus on enablement, customer enablement, education people. So we'd love to have you join. It's free. You can scan the code or just go to customereducation.org as well. So, my big question for you is, what kind of movement will you build? How will you go and show up in front of your CEO and say, hey, how do we take this music framework and actually build something people are excited about? How do we actually build a movement? And that's going to be my big question for you. If you found this useful, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to learn more about what kind of programs you're building. I love learning about communities. And I just wanted to say a huge thank you for your time. I'm going to check to see if there are any questions from the audience. And I'll ask the moderators to come in and help me moderate some questions. But again, just want to say a huge thank you for being here. I know community is hard work, so thank you for doing God's work, and I wish you all the best.
Fantastic, Sumeru or Sumo, as you kind of call yourself. That's just great, and we can find all the great content that you're providing on the internet with that as well. Really amazing content, and the case studies and everything was just absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much, and certainly in light of some of the news that we've read today about Adobe acquiring Figma for $20 billion, this really couldn't have been presented to us in a better time, really. So I'm just looking at the chat. One of the things that was asked by Arlen, can you show the other QR code again, please? So they're just trying to capture that. So would you be able to put that up on the screen, perhaps for our audience?
Sure. Yeah, this is the easiest QR code is just my LinkedIn profile. This takes you to my LinkedIn. It's just linkedin.com/sumo, or you can just find me. Either way, it works. I'll be happy to send you the case studies as well as an invite to the education community.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that on behalf of Ireland. So we have one question from Tina. What company is that you created your expert community?
That was a company called Thinkific, which is a Canadian edtech company. And it's similar to it's basically an LMS software. And we realized that we could not serve, Thinkific had a free platform. So we had over 100,000 customers. And we realized that we could just never hire enough people to serve them. But there were people in the community who were super passionate about our product. And we said, hey, we went to them and say, would you like to sell your services to our other customers? And we created a little bit of a sort of a service marketplace, which was, again, community driven, because the demand was there from the community and the supply came from the community. And that's how we got started.
Fantastic. And thanks for that explanation. Really, really, cool stuff. So Vanessa is asking, Sumo, you had mentioned that you will talk about the platforms and the ones you prefer. Can you please touch upon that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have enough time to get into that. What I'll do is, let me see if I can share my screen very quickly. I spent the last 2-3 months calling 40 different community platforms. I called every single one of them. I took a demo because I wanted to see what was happening, like what were people building. What did I love about community products? What did I not love about community products? For a long time, I actually considered building my own community product because I didn't like anything out there. I've used Chorus, I've used Bevy, I've used Mighty Networks, I've used Slack, and they all have their trade-offs. So what I wanted to do was create a little bit of a matrix on what I love, what I hate, and what is upmarket and downmarket. And if you'd like access to that, I'd be happy to share that with anybody as well. Just send me a message on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And thank you very much. I'm just looking at the chat, but I don't see any other question. It's just, just a lot of thank yous and a lot of applauses on the fact that, this was such a, heavy concept that was delivered in such a great manner and, in such a short amount of time. So we'd like you, thank you for that one. So that's been absolutely fantastic. So thank you for being here, and thank you for telling us everything, all these case studies, your methodology, and everything else that you have shared there. Just absolute gold. It has been for us, and it has been for the audience as well. So Sumo, thank you very much. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys in the chat.